Alright, so we finally had our big blockbuster trade with James Harden involved as the Rockets have finally shipped him out onto the new era. And I mean, honestly, as soon as I saw the quotes from James Harden last night after their back to back losses to the Lakers, it felt pretty certain at that point that we'd be seeing a James Harden trade soon. Now, I didn't think next day was going to be the scenario, but it was. And I think the craziest part about all of this was Shams and Woj, obviously they dropped the bombs at some point. I think it was around maybe like 4 o'clock Eastern time. And originally it was just that James Harden was going to the Brooklyn Nets for Karis LeVert, Jarrett Allen, and picks. And then all of a sudden the Cavs were in it too, and the Cavs were getting Jarrett Allen, and they were throwing in a pick as well, and they're also getting Taurean Prince. And then out of nowhere, we got the secondary bombshell to the original bomb that Victor Oladipo is also going to be heading to Houston, and Karis LeVert is now going to the Pacers, which that just added a whole new layer to this entire blockbuster deal. So I'm going to go team by team through this whole trade, as there were 4 involved. We have the Rockets, we have the Nets, we have the Pacers, and we have the Cavs, all getting something different out of this deal. So again, I'm going to go one by one. I might have timestamps for each team. If you're into that kind of stuff, I might not. I don't really know. I haven't edited it yet, obviously, as I'm recording now, but yeah, besides the point. So starting with the Nets, they didn't have to give up Kyrie. They held on to KD, obviously, as he was the only untouchable. They bring on James Harden, and this is already just looking like one of the most skillful and talented big threes we've ever seen. I thought, we all thought the big three era was done, but just like that, one big trade later, and we now have Kyrie Irving, James Harden, and Kevin Durant all on the same team. And my initial reaction is that if this team doesn't post one of the highest offensive ratings in NBA history, then I'm going to be disappointed. All 3 of these guys are isolation gods of the game of basketball, so it'll be very interesting to see how opposing teams come up with defenses that will probably not work, but might work at some point. I don't know. Defenses are going to have a tough day guarding these guys. I mean, you're guarding Kyrie one possession, you get picked, and then you're switched on the KD, and it's terrible. And not only do the Nets have these 3 superstar players, they also still have a very good and deep rotation with Joe Harris, TLC, Jeff Green, DeAndre Jordan, Bruce Brown, Landry Shamet. Like, they have plenty of NBA-ready guys on their bench to come fill in and eat some minutes, and yeah, this team is just looking very good. I think it's safe to say that they're now the favorites in the East, even I think a few people had them as favorites before this trade, but now that this trade has happened, I think it's safe to say that they are solidified as the favorites in the East to reach the finals. And I mean, if I had to say it right now, it's very much looking like a Lakers-Nets finals, as long as no injuries occur, obviously, but that seems what we're destined to go forwards. As for the Rockets, they ended up getting Victor Oladipo, Dante Exum, 3 unprotected first-round picks from the Nets in 22, 24, and 26. They also got a 22 pick from the Milwaukee Bucks through the Cavaliers, and they also got 4 first-round swaps from Brooklyn in 2021, 23, 25, and 27. So a total of potentially 8 picks in this trade for the Rockets, which is just ironic because they spent the last 6 years trading away all of their draft assets in order to get players to surround James Harden with, and now they're finally, after trading away everyone, they've finally got rid of James Harden, and they've gotten all of those picks back and more. So that's just, I don't even know what to think about that. But in doing this as well for Houston, they've managed to stay competitive while also getting rid of James Harden. Obviously, they still have John Wall, Boogie Cousins, and Christian Wood, who they got this offseason. They still have Eric Gordon, Jayshawn Tate, I've loved so far this season, and they have, David Nwaba. They have they have a pretty solid NBA roster. And then adding on Victor Oladipo, who's been playing like his old all-star self so far this season, this could still be a legit playoff team in the West. I don't think they're going to go anywhere in terms of being finals contenders, but again, this is a solid playoff team, and I think they could make some noise, especially as the season goes on and they get some chemistry up and together, because it really did seem like Harden was definitely a bad spot on this team, bad for the chemistry, bad for the on-court play. They've actually been playing with him. They have a better plus-minus with Harden off the court than on the court, so as long as Oladipo continues to play like his old all-star self, this is definitely looking like a pretty good deal for the Rockets, because even if Oladipo, even though his contract is up after the season, I think there's a pretty good chance that he re-signs as long as the Rockets, show some potential this year. And even if Oladipo doesn't resign, then the Rockets have John Wall, Boogie, Christian Wood. They still have some pieces for the future. Mainly Christian Wood's probably the big piece set for the future. But they also have 8 first-round picks coming in from now until 2027. So they have plenty of time to get some assets and build around their young core, which now looks like it's going to be Christian Wood. Now moving on to the Indiana Pacers, I was a little bit confused at first, to be honest, just because the team had been playing so well this year. I thought there was maybe a chance that things were going to work out in the end, and Oladipo might have had a chance of staying, but it's clear that Oladipo, the rumor started last season really that he wanted out of Indiana, so it seems like those stuck true to what they have been. And the Pacers, they took the opportunity to move on from Oladipo, and they did it, and it could potentially pay off in the end as they are bringing on Caris LeVert. They also got a second-round pick with them, but obviously the centerpiece here is Caris LeVert. And LeVert has a chance to be a really good addition to this team because he brings a lot of the same skills that Oladipo did. He can play make a little, he can score. He's had plenty of 40-point games across his career so far, and he's only 26, so you're gaining some years of age on Oladipo, and he's a few years younger. He's on contract for this season and then the next 2 after that, so add in some more contract security than Oladipo had, and overall, he's not going to command the ball as much, meaning the Pacers can lean more on their star players like Domantas Sabonis, Malcolm Brogdon, TJ Warren when he gets back. And then Caris LeVert, his main focus is just going to be staying healthy. He can stick to his playmaker role. He can still go off for 30 points any given night because that's just the type of player he is. And ultimately, it might take some games for the Pacers to figure out their rotations again, but I think this is definitely a plus move for the Pacers because they can still win now with their current lineup that's been looking really hot at the start of the season. And then they're also set up a bit more for the future, rather than when they had Oladipo. There were a lot of question marks. LeVert gets rid of some of those question marks. And then finally, the Cleveland Cavaliers were low-key a hidden winner in this trade because they hopped in as a third team in this one. They give up Milwaukee's first-round pick, so it wasn't even their own first-round pick. They give up another team's first-round pick, and in return, they also have Dante Exum, but Dante Exum hasn't really done much since being drafted into the league. So in return, they get Jared Allen, who is a 22-year-old center who is looking like he is ready for a breakout scenario to happen. He's been great. He was the best center on the Brooklyn Nets, so that's saying something. They were a contending team, and he was their best big on the team. So coming over to Cleveland, obviously there is a little bit of depth chart jamming in front of him with Andre Drummond, Larry Nance, Kevin Love, JaVale McGee. But realistically, Andre Drummond doesn't have a future in Cleveland. He's probably going to get traded at the deadline or just simply not going to be signed back after the season. So next season, it's looking like Jared Allen is going to be just another great addition to this young core that the Cleveland Cavaliers have been working so well on. They have this excellent backcourt. They have Cedi Osman, who's been showing some great scoring bursts across the past year or so. Larry Nance is looking like he's a pretty good 4, and if they hold on to Kevin Love, Kevin Love's another solid 4, so now you throw in Jared Allen in the mix, and they actually have a complete starting 5. Not to mention, they have recently acquired Isaac Okoro from this past draft, who's been looking pretty good to start his career off, and all in all, things are looking up for the Cavs for the first time in a while when the name LeBron James is not mentioned in the same breath. And in addition to all of this, they also got Taurean Prince, who, definitely not a part of the Cavaliers' future plans, but just a solid wing, and, the Cavs need some wing depth right now. They just need depth everywhere pretty much. Their bench is not very good, so, Prince will give you some additional minutes here and there, but he'll probably be shipped off or bought out at some point for some future assets, and the Cavs, they were low-key winners in this one. Overall, my final thoughts on this trade, I personally would have much rather seen Harden get traded to the Sixers for Ben Simmons. One, I think the balance of the league would have been looking a lot cleaner rather than having this three-headed monster of Kyrie, Harden, and Durant. And not to mention, Joel Embiid has just been playing like an MVP this season, so it would have been really fun to see him with James Harden. Also, James Harden would just check off so many needed boxes for the Sixers offense, and I think it would have been a perfect companionship. But either way, Harden's now a net. The Nets are looking like a super team right now, I'm not even going to lie. But as of now, the only teams that I really see giving them any trouble in a 7-game playoff series, obviously the Lakers because they have LeBron and AD. I could maybe see the Clippers doing it if they can get their stuff together by the end of the season. and then maybe the Celtics or Bucks, but I am very much doubting those last two. But outside of all of that, those are my initial reactions on this trade. Leave your comments down below on what you guys thought about this big blockbuster trade that just happened. And outside of that, leave a like if you enjoyed this video or enjoyed this type of content. And as always, most importantly, thank you for watching.